Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. I refuse to cook and chilled with men. I, 28 female, dislike cooking. Don't get me wrong, I cook for survival. But it is not something I like or enjoy. At my in-laws, both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are stay-at-home partners and love to cook. Neither of their husbands lift a finger to help and they like it that way. Before marriage, I was treated as a guest. But since my marriage 6 months ago, they expect, want and demand I cook with them. First few times I went along with it, but I hated it. It took 5 to 7 hours to make food and do dishes. So when they planned to get together last weekend and discuss the menu, I suggested ordering in. This way everyone can be more relaxed. They looked like I insulted them. I told them they can cook, but to give me list of what I should make, I will buy it. They said that's not how traditions work, and if I hate it too much, I can relax with men. That's exactly what I did. Much to their anger. I helped setting place and serving, but that was it. As we were eating, my husband commented how good something tasted. Mother-in-law immediately went on about how I wouldn't be cooking anything for him. When he said he can cook for himself, sister-in-law chimed in with how her husband or dad never had to cook a day in their life. How marrying lazy women like me has ruined his manhood. I looked at my husband and we both laughed. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law are blasting our phones over my arrogance and calling him spineless. Even my mom is taking their side now. But guess who don't care? Next story. Give me a parking ticket for a spot I paid for, I dare you. About 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from me in Indianapolis. Decided to make a day of it, going to several museums and spots around the city. Each time paying for parking in a garage for 2 or so hours, then going to meander around the area. Finally, I go park close to the venue and paid for parking until the time it was free. Total, I probably paid $40 to $50 for parking throughout the day. Enjoyed the concert, but come back to a parking ticket on my car. I think this is odd, but I am tired and chalk it up to a mistake. But I decide to take photos of my parking spot. Both spots on either side were taken, and all the signage, and head home for the evening, figuring I would sort it in the morning. The next morning, I review the ticket, the photo of my spot, and my parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt shows that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submit an appeal thinking this will be easy. It's obvious that a mistake was made. The appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for, ergo it stood. I called the office, and the lady said they did not make a mistake, as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X1 and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X1. She said, well, you could have moved the car. Note that the parking receipt included my license plate number and everything, think Park Mobile-like system. I noted that there were cars and spots on either side of me and that the entire street was full because of the concert. And honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. Even had that not been the case, I had proof that that license plate had a paid parking spot. No matter what, no dice. I am feeling petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point. So, I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I had parked, since it didn't count. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. Visa, and what was the greatest thing Visa has ever done? IMO, they agreed that if my parking receipt and transaction number wasn't proof I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive. And they extended my initial request of canceling the one transaction to include all the parking spots I had paid for through the system that day, valued at more than the parking ticket. Then they filed a formal complaint on my behalf with a letter explaining why they were refunding me. I would not have been nearly as satisfying if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large parking bill, all with the same vendor. Next story. Retiring lawyer spills his beans. This all from memory bases on the ramblings of a drunk retiring lawyer about 30 years ago. All mistakes are mine. So I started work in the 90s on the shop floor of a pipe-making factory, but made a few friends in the office. So one year at our end-of-year breakup party, I overheard a story from the corporate lawyer who was retiring on the same day. Someone asked what his most memorable case was. This guy was gray. Gray hair, gray skin, gray clothing, gray manners. Nothing distinctive about him at all. In fact, at the annual company party known for drinking, this guy was always sober, but not that night. He was a contracts lawyer, never tried a case, just proofed contracts all day, as far as I know. He's probably dead by now along with most people in this story, but no company names, as those entities live forever. So, we made pipe. Plastic pipe. Water supply, sewer, electrical, and telecommunications duct. We were the second biggest in the market and would swap contracts with the biggest manufacturer as we both bid on supplying the big players in the markets. In our jurisdiction, we had a government communication department which got sold off and became big telco along with deregulation of the sector. We supplied green ducting for telecommunications to big telco, lost the contract to the competition, gained it back, etc. Life went on. One day, a new international company entered our market and started undercutting big telco. Let's call them OK Telco. So as things go, we lost the big telco contract, but picked up the OK Telco contract, which was bigger as they had to establish an entire network from scratch. Yay us! This is where Mr. Gray enters the story. He was a contracts lawyer, not a criminal law or other specialty, but contract. He gets a please attend meeting invite from big telco along with a select few from our company. Probably about the upcoming renegotiating of contracts. When Mr. Gray walks into the room with his boss, there sitting across the boardroom table are Mr. Big Crap and several $5 flesh-eating attack lawyers. They ambush them with an injunction about using this green, the standard telecommunications green, for OK Telco pipes, and are ready to take them for everything including the pension fund for daring to supply the competition. They had a strict contract on the table which had to be signed then and there, or another $5 flesh-eating attack lawyer standing by at the courthouse would have a judge sign an injunction against making any pipe at all until the case was settled. Probably an empty threat, but even a 2-week break in production could kill our company while lawyers cleared it with a judge to let us make other types of pipe. Mr. Gray looked over the contract and told the boss to sign as they could tie us up in knots due to their huge size and budget, while the contract just made it clear that this green was the exclusive property of Big Telco and could only make it for Big Telco. We folded like a shirt and signed. Life went on with us making OK Telco of that green pipe. A few months later, Mr. Gray went to a 20-year reunion from his law school. Guess who was there? Mr. Big Crap, telling everyone about how great a lawyer he is and how he can push around anyone due to how great he is, and definitely not due to his huge budget and army of $5 flesh-eating attack lawyers. Mr. Gray is pissed. Mr. Gray bides his time and pores over the contract. A few years later, Big Telco has to have a name change due to how much bad press they have from shifty service and practices, and as a way to avoid debts under the old name. They change everything: storefronts, letterheads, everything. They are now Newell Telco. Contracts come and go. The other big pipe company gets the contract from Newell Telco to make pipe. Mr. Gray strikes. Other pipe company and Newell Telco get served with cease and desist orders about making and using green pipe. Big Crap lawyer is puzzled and angry that this has happened and calls Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray arranges a meeting and then hangs up on Big Crap mid-threat. Big Crap turns up with his $5 flesh-eating attack lawyers to see just Mr. Gray in the boardroom, no ambush, no backup, just him. Mr. Gray lets him vent his spleen about how they're going to gut the company and Mr. Gray will never work in law again. Then Mr. Gray takes out a packet of papers and a highlighter. Makes a few strokes and pushes it to the closest $5 flesh-eating attack lawyer. They read what he had highlighted and screwed up their face. This was repeated as the papers were passed to the Big Crap lawyer. I'm no lawyer and this was about 30 years ago, so I can only paraphrase what Mr. Gray said he had highlighted. Only our pipe co, in conjunction with Big Telco, can make and or use this green pipe. Exclusively, with no substitutes, parent or child companies, successors, or blah blah blah. Since there were only 2 companies listed on the contract, they were the only 2 sets of people who could decide the fate of this green pipe. Big Crap said that they could claim ownership of the pipe color since they were in effect just a rebranded Big Telco. Mr. Gray pointed out that that admission would cause all their avoided debts to come home with interest, along with an admission of guilt in trying to pervert the course of justice. Big Crap then claimed that they inherit the ownership. Mr. Gray cut him off with the "no child company" clause. Big crap went on for a while, being blocked by Mr. Gray at every turn, and at the end even his $5 word flesh-eating attack lawyers were jumping in to shut him down because he was exposing them to risks greater than any of them were willing to be a part of, especially since they had made the contract as airtight as they could to screw us. As they were leaving, Mr. Gray said two things. "This was an unfair fight, all of you versus me. Next time bring more and smarter lawyers. And since we now effectively control this green, here's a document making the color public domain. We don't want to screw the other pipe company, it's not their fault, they have idiots for customers." Next story. "I see your malicious compliance on me, so I will do one of my own on you. A while ago, I was in charge of training for a large organization. I mostly did the organizing. For a fictitious example, I might coordinate the dean of medicine at Yale to come in and give a speech to 200 employees. Our usual location was a large auditorium/classroom, complete with podium and computer. The aforementioned dean might show up with a PowerPoint that he needed to run, etc., so I had my two admin assistants show up at 7:45 a.m. each morning to make sure whatever the room was running for whatever speaker/lecturer was there, as the usual start time was 0800. Sometimes, as was bound to happen, computer issues arose. Not too often, maybe once or twice a month, tops. Maybe the dean couldn't pull up his PowerPoint. So, we'd call our IT guy, Gary, who was 2 offices away, and he'd come and fix the problem. Everyone was happy. Until Gary retired. His new replacement, Todd, didn't like the arrangement. Though his start time was 0800, he'd often drift in at 0810 or 0815. This is not good when we're having a computer crisis at 0802. Further, he hated walking into the office and immediately having a call waiting for him. He wanted to have his coffee, read his email, and ease his way into the workday. Can't blame him there. So, Todd decided that he would no longer attend our computer calls. He told me to have my admin assistants troubleshoot the problems, since they were there, anyways. He was pretty hardcore about this, until I pulled out the job description of my assistants, and nowhere did it say that computer repair fell under their workload. I then showed him his job description, where it said that computer repair was. Enter malicious compliance on Todd's part. You want me to attend? Okay. Then we do it by the books. No more calling me directly. You need to call the central helpline and have them open a user ticket. Then I'll attend. I pointed out the foolishness of this. It's 0754, I have the Yale Dean of Medicine and he can't work his PowerPoint. I need it fixed now. I can't spend 15 minutes waiting on hold for the next available help desk agent, then 15 minutes explaining the problem to them, then have them open a ticket and send it to Todd, then another 20 minutes before Todd opens and responds to the ticket. We can't have 200 people sitting for 45 minutes waiting on Todd. Too bad, he said with a smirk. Those are the rules. Or you could just have you admin ladies fix the problem. I tried one last-ditch effort to reason. When the CEO is going to give a speech and the computer shorts out, he doesn't have to wait 45 minutes. So, obviously, you can make exceptions. Common sense says this should be one too. Nope. Todd said. The CEO's staff do what's called a preemptive ticket. They submit it ahead of time and have me there on standby in case things do go wrong. So, yes, even he has to do the ticket process. Okay, Todd, I see your malicious compliance, and raise you one of my own. The next morning, I sat with coffee in hand, and waited, smiling in anticipation. Sure enough, my door burst open, with a furious Todd. What the F is this, he snarled, waving a printout. I had submitted preemptive tickets for every day, for the next 3 months, requiring Todd to be at my training room at 7:45 every day just in case there was a computer emergency. Even better, I had contacted his boss and received authorization to change Todd's work schedule due to operational requirements, so he would now be required to work 7 to 3 instead of 8 to 4. Or you could just pick up the damn phone when I call and come over. We agreed that the ticket process would not be necessary, and he would show up as needed. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.